welcome, viewers, listeners. This morning, Friday, we're on another Poetry Corner. But this is a Poetry Corner with a difference. Our assembled poets here today, in fact, I'm seeing about 5 or 6 poets, and they will be critiquing, discussing a poem. The host for today's program is Courtney, and I will have Courtney explain exactly what will happen. So go ahead, Courtney.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good morning to our listeners and viewers of the Real Stuff podcast. Today, in our Poetry Corner, we have a poetry discussion critiquing the poem If We Must Die by Claude McKay. And today we have several poets with us, and I'll just take this time and ask them to introduce themselves. I'll just ask Dr. Anita Caprice to go first as our lady in our midst, and then everyone else afterwards.
Okay, well, hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Yes, I'm Anita Caprice. I'm a poet, been writing poetry all my life, and above all, I'm a mom of beautiful twin girls, daughters, they're women now, mom of handsome son-in-laws, and grandma of precious 5. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Wayne. Is Wayne there?
Man, you need to unmute. You're muted, Wayne.
Testing.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Yes, my name is Wayne Russell. I'm a professor of mathematics. I've been a poet all my life, I guess. I am an activist, a researcher, and an engineer. And my background has always been in activating my people of color, wherever they reside. I have 4 kids. They're all grown people. And I'm the consummate activist. So I'm happy to be here. Blessing and greetings to all. I'm under the weather, so I'm trying to power through. So blessings and greetings.
Okay, Flavius, who else is in the room? Is Burnett there?
Yes, Burnett is here.
Okay, Burnett, go ahead.
Please unmute yourself, Burnett.
All right, there you go. Can you hear me?
Sure, yes.
Yes, greetings, family. My name is Burnett Coburn, and thanks to my brother Wayne Russell who invited me here. He dragged me kicking and screaming back to writing, which I had walked away from for 32 years. So I consider myself a beginner in this group at the moment. I refinish wooden floors for a living, and I'm also a graduate of the Jamaica School of Drama about 100 years ago. And that's Oh, I wrote a book of poems, and it's called Sorbet and Sweet Potato Pudding.
Wow.
And that's about it. Quite simple.
Okay.
We have Asiku.
Well, wait. Is Frank Jilks there?
Yes, Frank is here.
Yeah, man. Go ahead, Frank.
Frank, could you unmute yourself? And is your mic working now? Frank mic is now working right now, Courtney.
Okay. All right. Let's ask Asiko.
Yes. Is everyone getting me?
Yes, go ahead.
So.
Yeah, my name is Asiku. I am from Uganda, and I'm still a new person. I'm a student studying Makerere University, doing English and literature, and I love poetry. As introduced, yes, it's my first time to be here, and I'm glad to be with you all.
Welcome, welcome to the Real Stuff podcast.
Thank you.
Okay, today, as we're going to critique Claude McKay's poem, I know that we always like to say ladies first, but Professor Wayne, I'd like you to start us out today.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm a bit under the weather and I'm in the process of moving, so thank you for at least accommodate me as early as possible. If we must die, the first time I saw this piece of poem, I remember I was reminded why I'm a revolutionary. Because to think that this poem was written or published in early 90s during the uprising, where Black people didn't have a voice of such. And to me, I don't know of any radical poem that was so central to the movement as it relates to how Black folks should see themselves within the struggle. And of course, structurally, it's a Shakespearean sonnet, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G, for whatever that matters. But what I was fascinated by, and my most, to me, the most powerful line in this piece is the couplet that closed the poem. Like men, we face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back. Now, if I were to analyze this poem, there is so much beauty in it. It's a natural Shakespearean sonnet, as I mentioned, but there was several times where you see where the poet himself, he was looking at, it's an inspirational poem, advising those who have been trodden and oppressed. And there's another line that I always make reference to. And for their 1,000 blow deal one deadly blow. And though before us lies open grave, like men will face the murderous cowardly pack. It was a sort of call to, and I'm sorry that there was someone to read this poem before to give it enough, you know, the royalty and the royal interest that it deserves. But I'm assuming that we are all familiar with the written work. But I would argue that at the time when Claude McKay penned this piece, it was a call to folks who were downtrodden and saying, although the odds are against us, when we are faced with these hungry dogs, we must make good account of ourselves. And although we know we cannot win, we are going to die, the one thing that we want to do is fighting back while facing these cowardly paths. And it drew attention because it was some very, very strong words at the time that it was published. And I think there was some reference to this piece when it went to the Library of Congress on how it would cause insurrection. And I don't know the true impact of this written work. And it reminds me of what obligation I have as a poet, to recognize the situation that I am in and to inspire people in whatever way, on whatever journey it is that we are facing as a people. And the closing line, as I mentioned before, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back. It reminds me of something that Claude McKay, can't remember, the Cuban poet, he dying and facing the sun. It's like a similar type of feel to it. But the notion that and listen, this poem is still relevant to date because it's the tentacles of oppression is still there, but it's taking on, it's more insidious. We are wrapped around it and we embrace it every day, thinking that we are free, and in reality we are not. And it's still the obligation of the poet to draw and call attention to injustices, call and draw attention to whatever situation oppressed people are faced everywhere. And I think I'll yield to someone else at this point.
Courtney, you hear me now? Courtney, you hear me?
Oh, yes, we
go ahead,
are.
Frank.
Oh,
I
good,
know
good.
you're busy.
Yeah, I had to do some technical things. It's a good thing that I can do it myself.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay, but I guess I just do a short introduction because everybody introduced themselves already.
Yes.
Right, my name is Frank Jukes. I'm a poet from Barbados. I've been writing poetry since I was about 11 years old. I've had several poems published in local and regional literary magazines, both in places like Trinidad and Grenada and Barbados. I've done several readings on local television and radio stations in Barbados. I'm also a local film actor, having started that part of my journey somewhere in 2014. I presently work with a film production company here in Barbados by the name of Board House Production, which has a YouTube channel called Board House TV. And we are pushing ahead. We're trying to build a vibrant film industry here in Barbados and hopefully regionally as well. I've just published, along with my brother, we have just published a collection of our poems, Sea, Water, and Sand. It's available on Amazon. It's not been officially launched yet, but it's available on Amazon already. And it's doing pretty well so far with sales, I must say. Right. This poem for me was an inspiration in a lot of ways, If We Must Die. It was one of the first real revolutionary poems that I ever read. And what I heard the brother just now talk about the last line, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back. You know, pressed to the wall to me is a powerful metaphor suggesting that when we are in a position where there's no turning back, because when you are pressed to the wall, it means there's no turning back. So you have one choice. You have one choice. You're pressed to the wall, you know the odds are against you, so you're dying. But in spite of that, you're fighting back. It is truly a powerful revolutionary piece. And as I said, it has inspired most of my poems that have that revolutionary theme. And I've always been a great admirer of Claude McKay. And of course, one of his I would say proteges, Langston Hughes, who would have been probably greatly influenced by Claude McKay as well, right? So I also remember that Claude McKay, the part that Claude McKay would have played in the whole Harlem Renaissance in the early part of the 20th century. So he was a powerful poet, and as I say, this is a powerful piece, powerful revolutionary piece.
Okay, Dr. Anita Caprice, can you go ahead?
Yes, thank you. Okay, yeah, I too felt that this was a very, very powerful and beautiful and twofold, if you will. I did get the revolutionary, like Gil Scott, the revolutionary shall be televised or shall not be televised. But then I thought the revolutionary within ourselves, because when I first read, if we must die, let it not be like hogs hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot. The first thing I thought is being pinned to a tree. And you have these slave masters or overseers coming after me because I tried to escape and the dogs are around. Then I thought about the hog. I said, okay, well, the hog has to reference something. So then I looked up hog, and hog represents arrogance and being stubborn. So to me, then this piece went to, not only was it for just on the outside, but it says also for what's going on the inside as well. It also shared with me that I think he was talking about that we must stand together. We must stand together when we are fighting a cause, when we are growing within a cause, when we are going through life. There are things that we're going to have to fight, and sometimes we have to fight together as well as alone. Then he says, making their mock at our accused lot. If we must die, let us nobly die. Let us nobly die not in vain, not in dogma that my thing is right, my religion is right, my politics is right, I'm right, so I'm gonna die for what I believe is right. That is stubborn. That is stubbornness. So that's what I got out of this one. It's like, okay, let me not die in vain, in pride. Let me die not for me, but for the cause. For the cause. It has nothing to do with my ideology about the cause, but for the cause itself. Then when he says, "O kinsmen, us together, we must meet the common foe." The enemy, who is from day one, who is really the enemy? Within. We are our own enemy. Because it's how we think and how we believe and how we even come together. There's been, like people say all the time, there's this disunity among Black men and women. The disparity and so it's said, whatever that you believe. So when I think of enemy, our coming together and not let the enemy, not let our limitations stop us from fighting for this cause. For love of each other, for love of the planet, for love for the power of it all, for the future generation, for the present generation, for the past generation. And then when he says, through though far outnumbered, let us show us brave. Yeah, we may be outnumbered. There may be on the outside, we may be 10 of us standing right here, and there's 50 of ahead of us. And I see that. We said, no, let's forge together. But in order to forge together, we have got to be of right mind. We have got to be not right mind, we have got to be of like mind. We have got to be yoked to be together in this revolution, in this war, in this element of change. We've got to have our consciousness on the same thing that we are saying. We are fighting for the same thing, not my thing, not your thing. We're fighting for the thing in collective unison. And and for their 1,000 blows, deal one death blow. Yet later, for all the fisticuffs, strategize, and get in there and think, come together, as Denzel Washington said in Training Day, let me quarterback this thing. Let us quarterback this thing. And instead of striking so many blows that some points are pointless, get in there and do it, like my grandmother would say, nip it in the bud the first time, then be done with it. Then when and though before us lies the open grave, the open grave of what's been before us, what's been buried. We can learn from what's been buried if we only look through the open grave and see, not only just with our eyes, but see with our heart. If we see what lies within that open grave, like men who will face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back. And that we are continuing as a people, being in unison. No more of this culture believes they're better than. That culture believes they're less than. That none of that. Although when we are pressed to the wall, that means that I have no other way, I have no other alternative but to come on and strike back. But I got my brothers and my sisters together, and we are of like mind. That's what I got from this piece, and I love it. And I want to
Okay,
thank you.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Anita. Okay, I forget to apologize to Mr. Antara Jills, but he sent his contribution, and I'd like to read it for you. It says the poem, If We Must Die, is a passionately emotional and core poem and calls on the ideals of honor to cease being passive in the face of racism, segregation, and racial violence. The poet had resolved in his mind the question as to what should be done at this stage, encouraging the victims to retaliate, fight back, even though the inevitable result will be death. Claude McKay's skillful use of simile in the first line, not like ox, and metaphor in line 3, mad and hungry dogs, set the stage for what he's about to suggest. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die. We must meet a common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. Even though the result be death, finally he concludes, like men, we'll face the cowardly fighting pack, but this has always been one of my favorite poems. This is what Antara says. Strong words and imagery. The poem also has to be read and understood in the context of American Jim Crow laws, racism, and segregation. So kudos to Antara, because yes, he's one of the people who's always supporting the Poetry Corner, and we surely missed him today. Okay, moving on.
And that's my brother.
Yeah.
Yes.
Burnett, can you let us hear your contribution, please?
I first encountered this poem in high school in the early 1970s. And prior to reading this poem, the only other poet I read who wrote that I could understand was Miss Louise Bennett. Later came people like Oko Nora and Mutabaruka and the rest of the folks we read from the Caribbean. But reading this in the 1970s, it was at the time when Michael Manley was experimenting with socialism, democratic socialism in Jamaica. And there was what I would call a revolutionary uprising. So among the youths in Jamaica at the time, our parents couldn't even understand us. So when we read this, and I think I read this around 1973, if we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot. I'm from the country, I'm a country boy, so I understand what it means to hunt hogs. I've never hunted them, but I know what it means to do so, but we raise pigs. The other force that entered my life around that same time was Rastafari. And being that hogs and Rastafari doesn't eat pork, then I had stopped eating pork around this time too. And then this caught my attention. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot. And I could clearly see the imagery of a pig, a hog, backed up against a wall, backed up in a corner, surrounded by dogs, and the hunter with a gun or a spear gun or something, and the hog fighting back for dear life. And this might have been the only time in my life when I was in sympathy with a hog. And this shows the power of imagery and the power of the poet's mind, the artist's mind, to reach people in different ways. I was not yet aware of the Harlem Renaissance and the role that writers from the South and the diaspora played in bringing the consciousness of the African American, or Afro-American as we were called at that time, to light. But this resonated in such a way with me as a country boy that I said, there must be something more to this man. I learned that he was a cop, and he was a cop before he left Jamaica. And furthermore, that Winston Churchill read this poem or portions of this poem when he was trying to inspire the British people to fight back against Hitler's aggression. And this, more than any poem in my life, said to me, oh my God, there's power in the word. You have to do something. So mine was, I don't know how to put it, it was something that grabbed me around my heart and in the gut as to even an intellectual exercise. It was only later as my reading expanded, that I came to the fullness of it within the light of the Harlem Renaissance, what was happening in the South, and all of that, and African Americans fighting for themselves, fleeing the South and coming to Harlem, the Mecca, and doing what they're doing. But not only did they come to Harlem as African Americans, they came to Harlem as refugees from their enslavers in their own country. And then they met up with people who could be considered refugees from colonialism, from Africa, from South America, from the Caribbean. So this was a melting pot, and this poem spoke to the condition of Black people in America at that time, for me, more than any other poem I've read up to date, until I got to Gil Scott Heron anyway, so yeah. That's my take on it, my initial take on it right now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Burnett. I'll just give my little contribution, on this poem. Firstly, I look at it and see that it's a brilliantly written sonnet, that, talk about resistance, especially against racism, during that time when the people in the southern part of the United States was, facing segregation, racism, and the things of Jim Crow laws, creating problems for them, both politically, socio-economically. And he was speaking to them to say, look, although you're in this position, we need to do something, we need to fight back. It gives, and also it also gives a historical and futuristic viewpoint about the generation to come. He wasn't just talking about what is happening presently in his time, but if we in the following generations to come would see this poem and realize that yes, you have to resist the things that are oppressive. So, that's my little part. And, especially our people, we see that we are still subject to all of these things presently. So this poem is relevant today. And as, Professor Wayne says, it's a revolutionary poem. And well, everyone who spoke allude to the fact about it being a revolutionary poem. It has changed. When I read this poem the first time, and that was in the 70s also, it changed how I think about, what was happening at the time. Because although being young and inexperienced of those things in Jamaica, but we were still experiencing, this whole color thing in Jamaica at the time. And as Burnett had pointed out, there in the 70s, as youngsters, we were really exposed to this new ideology of, democratic socialism coming in, and people, there was like a whole lot of protest that was during the Walter Rodney time. Walter Rodney came about, and so we started to get attuned to what was happening. And so this poem really expressed everything about, the revolution at the time. So I'll just move on a little bit and ask is anyone there who would like to say something? Because the poets that spoke.
Courtney, we still have Asiku.
Asiku, I don't know. He was really on the panel, so I don't know if he wants to contribute or he just wants to listen. So,
Asiku, could you clear that up, please?
Oh yes, thank you so much. Just today listening, and perhaps I will contribute next time.
Okay, no problem.
I haven't gone through the poem. Yeah, I haven't gone through the poem, so I think it will make me to go and read. Thank you.
Okay,
Courtney,
no problem.
Yes,
Courtney,
yes, right.
yeah, I want to suggest too that if I take the poem in context of the time period, and given the fact that Claude McKay would have been in the USA at this time when he wrote this poem, because he would have went to the USA in 1912, and this poem. So when I read "Hunted and Penned in an Inglorious Spot," inglorious spot could also be a deep reference to that area, the land space, the USA at the time, because the USA at the time was an inglorious spot for Black people. It was an area of it was a landmass that brought Black people to a shameful position in terms of the treatment that they were given. So wise it would have been a glorious spot for some, and you know, it was an inglorious spot for us. So those people who would have gone to the USA, from the British colonies and so on in the Caribbean at the time, would have leaving that colonial background, which was also in a sense an inglorious spot. But I think they came more face to face with it when they came to America, because it was more clear. The racism and so on was more blatant because what they would have met when they arrived there. So it was an inglorious spot that they were penned into, and that's why there was a call to action to defend and to stand up for what is right. So it's also a call to action when McKay said, all kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. That line to me suggests a call to action.
Action, yes. Okay.
We must all kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. We must meet the common foe. It's a call to action for all the people and kingsmen. I don't think in that line it also suggests to me that you can't even keep it to the African people, because don't forget there were other people in America who was being oppressed at the same time. There was the Native Americans who were seriously oppressed also. So I think kingsmen suggest all those who have that common thread, and who are fighting under oppression, all the oppressed people of the world. So it's a call to action for the oppressed people of the world to come together and fight and meet the common foe. Yeah.
If I might say, I write principally to express my love of Black women. And there are references in this poem to kingsmen and men. There are no references to women, but at the time, it must be taken in the time frame within which it was written. And most people at the time, it was mostly men who were in positions of power and men who were facing it, not to discount what the women were doing. As we became more knowledgeable and our minds opened, then we started to understand that we cannot, in our art, exclude the contributions of women. So I just like to point that out at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the term kingsmen, mean both men and women,
Yeah. I think it's a gender neutral term.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to move on a little bit, to talk about, the poet's use of metaphors and similes.
But before you go, Courtney, before you go there, I see we have a new person, the street poet, the street prophets.
Hello.
Yes, good day.
Hey, good day. How are you doing?
We are doing well. And you?
I'm sorry, I have just joined right now.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know what you were speaking about. Sorry.
Okay, so you're just here to listen then?
I'm also a poet. I can recite if maybe there's a chance.
All right, now we are just discussing Claude McKay's
Oh,
poem.
all right. No problem. All right, no problem.
Yes.
You know, if I may, I'd just like to say, and this just came to me, when you were speaking, let's see, I think it was Frank and Burnett, bless your heart. When I'm looking at, O kinsman, we must meet the common foe, though far outnumbered, let us show us brave. What would be the common foe? To me, it just came to me, the common foe, if we're being outnumbered, what is the one thing that we may feel? Fear.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you, I mean, did you,
Correct,
do you
correct.
guys see that? The common
Oh yeah.
foe, though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, even though we fear. And that fear can be the common foe because we got to fight through the fear so that we can be brave to press on. I
Great
mean, I,
point.
I I
Great
just
point.
wanted to share that because I don't know, for some reason I just felt it. I said, fear, that's the common foe.
Mm.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah,
If I,
yeah.
if I might just share a little bit of my practical experience. When I first came to America, I moved into a building that was in a deplorable state and started to organize the tenants in the building. And most of the people were terribly afraid to participate. Anyway, we pressed ahead with what we were doing, and finally we formed an organization, started putting the rent in the bank and so forth in escrow. And we met with the guy who owned the building. And many people were terribly nervous even when we went into his office to talk to him. And then he said to us, I've wanted to fix up this building for so long. I just wanted some responsibility. So I remember that when we came out of the office, the first thing I said to the people, you see, there was no reason to fear. He's one person, we're numerous. We're a group of united people. In no time he fixed up the building. We even got an awning in the front of the building, and then he sold it afterwards at the health of profit. So if I might just bring some present day experience to a poem that was written in the 1920s, 30s there, yeah.
But that
Practical
concept,
Claude McKay comes home to
yeah,
me.
that concept
Yeah,
about fear,
in
the concept
actuality,
of fear,
that poem was written in 1919.
1990. Yeah.
Yes.
That concept about fear raised by the sister there is definitely realistic because, and as you said just now, you experienced there, you saw these tenants were fearful. They had fear. So I think Claude McKay would have been bombarded by the fear of the persons to stand up. So I agree that the call to action would be first of all to conquer the fear.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But another aspect of that, are looking at from this angle that he was thinking of, they were fearful because they were really outnumbered by the white people,
Yeah.
and well, and he was thinking about, well, although this, we are far outnumbered, we can stand up, and and it shows that he was talking about courage.
Yeah.
And also dying honorably and dying with dignity.
Definitely. Because even although he's admitting that they will die, he's not doing it with a defeatist attitude. He's saying, yes, we know we will die, but let us die fighting back. In other words, don't let's give up and die. Let us die fighting back. And there's also a line in the poem that suggests that even these people who are inflicting death on you, who are the oppressors, that there will come a time when they themselves shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. So even the oppressors at one point, because of the bravery and because of that unity, it will come to a point where they will eventually have to honor us. And I think that's significant. But as I say, the fear factor, definitely. I see it. Since the sister mentioned, I look at the poem, I can see it clear.
Yes.
I think that is something that is still very, very, very relevant. There's a lot of fear people to stand up and stand up for what's right.
Yes, I agree with you. The message was, clear, very clear.
Yep.
And we see how the poet, how we use the metaphors and similes, and we just like to, before we close out, just have a little discussion on that, because as poets, I know we all do, use metaphors and similes and other figure of speech, to express our poetry. So let's talk a little bit about the use of metaphors in poetry.
Well, I'm going to say that what I'm going to be honored to sit back and listen to you guys, because I was sharing with the sister friend. I said, I was blessed with being invited to come on a show and talk about the different styles and genres of poetry. And I said, I was going to go start doing my research and pulling up some stuff and studying before I go. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I said, because I've never wrote poetry like that. I'm sure well, metaphors, I know that. But as far as the technical terms of poetry, I never wrote like that. I tried, but then I started getting into the technicalities, and I just write what I feel and let it flow. So I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this show. Okay.
But my sister, I share your position, because I've been writing from when I was 11 years old. I have never studied the structure of poetry. I hear about these different structures and so on. And if I sit down to write a poem and I look at trying to structure along these lines, it confuses my brain. So sometimes I write a poem, sometimes the words come to me and I don't even know where the words come from. So I don't know where they come from. But when I look at them, they have certain structure. So other people looking at them probably down the road will analyze them and talk about the structure. But certainly when I wrote them, and I dare to say that when people like Claude McKay wrote these poems, they weren't thinking about the structure either.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that at times because we write mostly from our inspiration, and
Right.
so we don't really care about the technical terms and things, but we know that we compare stuff, so maybe in our comparison, when we are comparing things, we know that it's a simile.
Right.
But basically we don't.
And for me, the difference between poetry and prose is that when you write a poem, you're actually painting a picture. A poem is a step above prose, where you paint a picture. In prose, you say something directly. In prose, and you want to say a man is walking down the road. You say a man is walking down the road.
Mm-hmm.
A poet would probably say, and there he goes ambling along the way. You understand? So it's a whole different way of using language, because the poet must paint that picture so that you can see the action. The fact is, the man is walking down the road. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. That's a statement, direct. There's nothing picturesque about that. But then when you say now the man that there he goes ambling down the road or something like that, it brings a whole different thing, because you could walk in different ways, So I think that's basically what it is. So the more the language is entwined with metaphors and similes and so on, it becomes more poetic. It is more musical, because poems are very musical as well, very rhythmic. Every poem is a rhythm, and every poet has their particular rhythm, their peculiar rhythm. I always tell people, poets write in rhythm, and your rhythm and my rhythm are different rhythms. We write in different rhythms. So I think that's basically, to get tired with all the technicalities, it's difficult sometimes for a poet that write poetry to get into that, because we don't normally sit down and analyze our poems before we write them. We write, as you said, by inspiration, and as the words come, we know that if we want to say something, we got to make the language as picturesque as possible, so that the person that reading or listening can actually see what we're trying to convey.
Well,
so quick question though. So how would you term your style of poetry?
I always refer to my style of poetry as free verse.
Okay.
Free verse because as you say, I don't structure it along to a particular way, and I always refer to it as free verse. You know what I'm saying? Some of my poems has that particular style, but that was not intentional. It came out that way. Some came out like that. I have poems that written along the same style as Claude McKay. But as I said earlier, Claude McKay was one of the earlier influences in my writing, because I was more influenced by poets coming out of the Harlem Renaissance. Although I lived in Barbados, I never lived outside of Barbados. But I was more influenced by these poets, Claude McKay and Langston Hughes, because these are the ones that I first started to read in books. And the famous African American female poet. What's her name again?
Nikki Giovanni.
Mariangelo or Nikki Giovanni?
Giovanni.
That one that wrote the poem, and I rise.
Just
Maya
Angelo.
Mariangelo, yeah.
Maya Angelou. She was one of my favorite poets. So those poets influenced me a lot before I became exposed to even Camus Braffet, who was a Barbadian. I got exposed to Camus Braffet when I was in my late teens, where I actually met Camus Braffet and we did a reading together at one point. And then I started to tune my style a lot then based on the influence from Camus Braffet. But those early African American poets would have had more influence on my style. So that's why I said my style is free verse.
Now, what I'd be interested in asking, if we could convene the same panel a year from today, and which gives us, the student of literature, the student of life, of poetry, a chance to go educate ourselves on the structure of poetry. Then we come back and discuss it. I'm serious. I just returned from 3 months in Jamaica, where I actually finished the second volume of Sorbet and Sweet Potato Pudding. And I must tell you, that is when I'm in editing the work over a 3-month period, I realized how much I need to go and learn to write poetry. So just before coming up about 2 weeks ago, I started learning to rhyme, because I hated reading poem where it is structured in such a way that it must rhyme, whether 2 lines following each other, A, B, or A, E, whatever the case might be. What I've always gone for is what I tend to refer to as the marrow in the bone. Where you go and you extract the essence from life and the essence from what is being presented to you, whether the plastic arts or the written word or acting on stage or television and film.
Right.
But this poem, like I said, when I read it in high school, the imagery to a country boy of hogs or a pig, a hog backed up in a corner surrounded by dogs and a hunter appealed to me as almost cinematic. It was like at any moment you're expecting the hog to jump out and make a break for it, fight for its freedom, or at least kill one of the dogs that's surrounding it, if not even to wound the hunter. So when I hear this, my nervous when I hear these esteemed poets saying they don't go for it as much as that, I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I'm in good company. But I must admit that I'm learning. So a year from now, I wouldn't mind coming back to this particular panel so we can discuss even this poem in more depth.
I have been to school in Barbados already, primary school, because from time to time, I'm invited to go speak to children at schools and so on, especially when they have what we call reading week in Barbados. I get invited by teachers who know me personally and would invite me to come and read some of my stuff and speak to the students. And one student asked me one time what qualifications they have to be a poet.
You know, you know, with the structure, and I hear you, my brother, coming back a year with studying the clear views and what are the different dramatic poetry, haikus. The only poem that really is structured for me is when I do a haiku, because I know it has that particular, 575. But for me, you know, I write from my life experience, but and not just to share my life experience. I'd rather for someone to come to me, man, woman, or child, to come to me and say, you know what, my God, you touched my heart, as opposed to someone coming to me saying that was really pretty. I'm not into the structure of it because I think once, and I did try it, but then I started thinking of the structure and my creativity started to diminish. Just like when I'm teaching myself piano, because I want music to accompany my spoken word. When I had to let go of the theory of music because I got into the theory. Okay, let me know about, okay, I got to know the major and the minor and the different this and the that. And then I got out of the creativity of the flow of what my poetry meant to match with music. When I let that go, the other stuff, what I need to know as far as theory, it's still there. But you know what I mean? But I'm able to move forward because now I'm not thinking about that stuff. What I'm thinking about is how to touch somebody with the blend of this music with these lyrics. That's what's most important to me.
Yep.
Yeah,
But you know, there's also a difference between spoken word and the poetry that is on the page.
absolutely.
We have a lot of spoken word artists in Barbados, and when I listen to them, you listen to the spoken word artists, and the stuff is really, really good. I mean, it comes out at you. But one thing, a friend of mine in Barbados who is now deceased, a guy by the name of Rashid Foster, who we started writing together back in the late 70s. And he said to me once, but you know, when you listen to these spoken word artists, 2 weeks after, you can't even repeat one line. And it never dawned on me before. And I started to try to do it, and I realized, well, he was right. A lot of these spoken word artists, they come and they have this alliteration, and they come and they spoke this thing, and it's very, very, very colorful, very impactful. But then next day, I ask you, you remember a line from that poem? You don't remember a line from it. And you know, and some of us that the older type poets now, we go to school. I've been to school already to do a session. And when I started, some of the children started to recite some of my poems. Some of the children started to recite some. And they were like, oh, they know this stuff? You know?
Right.
I don't believe it. Yeah.
Right. Well, see, for me, spoken word spoken word artistry, because I'm a spoken word poet, and for me, spoken word, when I speak my or perform my poetry, that's when I know it by heart. That's when I'm not using a script. So that's the difference to me between a spoken word poet and someone that recites poetry. Because I'm both. So when I'm reading my poetry, when I'm reciting it, I'm doing a recitation. But when I'm on stage, or with my keyboard or just standing on stage without a script, now I've become a spoken word artist.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the only difference. Is one is by memory, one is not.
Right. And in my report, I don't work with it. I don't work with my report at all.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, we're coming to the close of our show today, and I just want to thank all my guests, Dr. Anita Caprice, Frank Jelks, Bernard Comel, Bernard Coburn.
Okay, you're not alone.
Dr. Wayne, Professor Wayne Russell. Surely it's a wonderful day, and I'll just ask Dr. Anita to just give us a closing, please. You know, that's a little summary of what we're spoken about to close us off.
Oh, just to close. Oh, Thank you. Okay, just to close this off, I just want to say, you know what? Let's keep on with the poetry and speaking from our heart, from our heart to our head, to our hand, to the pencil, to the paper, and let's just continue to inspire and be activists, revolutionaries, whatever we are, and then we just keep flowing with the pen and the paper and reaching people, inspiring people, and touching people's hearts, because that's what we need right now.
Okay, thank you
And I'm
very much.
honored to be among such distinguished gentlemen. I gotta say, I'm looking here and I'm the only one. I said, oh, don't I feel special?
So, okay, back to you, Flavors.
Thank you all for coming. I think today was a smash, a smash hit. I sit back and I enjoyed it immensely. It was great. I don't know when Courtney have another one scheduled, but this is something we have to do more often. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Blessings, peace, and love, everybody.
Blessings.
Thank you,
Same to
Courtney.
you. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And as we close, we're going to ask Queen Labafu to give us the Our Father in the Garifuna language, and Tafina will take us out. Thank you very much.
You lead us to Fula. You belong far away away. Ajugwala lebo buseru. Lida mua, lida sungfula. Lida mua, lida sungfula.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
All you gotta do is just speak. One word is enough, and I'm no longer so rough. I forget what I was trying to say. I no longer do what I was gonna do, but you're no good for me. That's why me do what send me a pick a flee. Me I fi take away me say. Me I fi take away me say. Me I fi hide like a thief in the night. Me I fi get out the side. Me I fi take away myself. I fi take away myself. I have to utilize I will.